So good afternoon, folks. Thank you so much for joining us. We are at one of the PHLAFF 2023 Q&A sessions. Today, we have the opportunity to spend some time with Taylor Krauss from Bronx, Banda. Y él nos va a decir un poquito más de, saben que Spanglish when it comes to me. So we're going to give Taylor an opportunity to introduce himself, and then we're going to go into 3 questions and talk about his process. Taylor, thank you so much for making the time to be with us.
Muchísimas gracias, Marángeli. I'm very muy alegre de estar aquí. Also voy a responder in Spanglish or mostly English, but I'm thrilled to be here. Thank you so much for having this film.
Thank you so much. So we have 3 questions for you. So the first one is, what inspired you to make your film? And what was the most challenging aspect or part of your filmmaking process?
I think hands down what inspired me to make this film is the music. Obviously, anytime that Arturo touches the keys, I'm inspired. And on this occasion, Arturo brought together a group of musicians who, as Arturo describes in the film, who would never, ever play together in any other setting except for their connectivity to the Bronx. And knowing the rich history of music in the Bronx, of the birthplace of salsa and hip hop and all of the collective rhythms that flowed into the Bronx because of all the different cultures that were flowing in, that really was a kind of a fertile soil around which to make this film. And so I was really excited to make sure that it was turned into a movie, not just observing this incredible music on my own.
And what was the challenging part?
I think the most challenging aspect of making this film was twofold. One, it started with the challenges the musicians faced because it was pandemic time. And as we know, the musicians really faced some of their worst days and nights during the pandemic. Here are people who make music for community, who make music in community, and who have to do it together. So the virtual platforms that they attempted to make music in were just simply not working. And I think this was a matter of life and death for musicians. And so for me as a filmmaker, I decided, wow, this is really an important time to use cinema, to use a camera, to use recording to find an audience for a group of musicians who can't find an audience during pandemic. And so I was thrilled that the camera could be that intermediary to maybe find future audiences for this band during the pandemic. But that posed another question. Even if I showed up in person, how to make a music documentary where faces are covered with masks? You know, when emotion and feeling gets conveyed through a face when you're witnessing music on film. So that was a challenge. How do you see what life is like in the Bronx in the streets when there are so few people out in the streets anyway because of the pandemic? And those who are in the streets also are wearing masks. So every aspect of filmmaking that we take for granted, whether it's witnessing life or seeing people's faces in close proximity in scene, as it were, was kind of robbed from this process. So that was challenging. And I think what's also really challenging is once the film is made, how do we find that audience? And again, that's where I'm grateful for Philadelphia Latino Film Festival for bringing this to a community that would love and respect this music and the miracles that those musicians made in the middle of the pandemic.
Thank you so much for that. So our next question is connected. As you know, we have been exploring this topic of collaboration. So how has collaboration impacted your filmmaking process and your practice as a creative?
As a filmmaker, my work in the world, when I'm brought on to other films by other colleagues of mine, I'm usually collaborating to find a process that works with the particular production. In this case, my role on the ground with a camera was going to be limited. In fact, we did not end up filming for that much time. We filmed for a period of a recording session and then a couple of subsequent public performances. And so my relationships with the band and with the community were not forged by on the ground time. Rather, the collaboration had to come almost in the edit room. So the way I see this film, it was a collaboration of the music itself and the images that I was making in the Bronx. And how did I incorporate that to enliven the space of the Bronx with the music that grew out of the Bronx? I was really lucky because this film was made with music that was made with stories by Bronxites through oral histories. And my film practice in the world is deeply rooted in the process of oral history and from many years of engaging in oral history. So again, when this project kind of came across my table and I saw that it was rooted in oral history, I was thrilled because the storytelling was going to be done by the musicians themselves and by the music itself. So all I had to do was make sure that I honored the music and the message of the community, the message of the history that was in the Bronx would get conveyed through the music if I did my job.
Thank you for that. Last question. How do you hope audiences will react to your film?
I hope they'll groove with it. I hope that when they have a chance to sit down for the music, that they'll feel as if they are there in situ, in sight, with the musicians who really played their hearts out in the recording session and in their first public concert. Everybody, I think I can speak for those musicians who played that music. They were so hungry to get together, to play together, that it was really electric. And I think that at least I felt that when I was there filming it, but I think it gets conveyed both in the electricness of the music, the electricidad of the music, and also in the way that, I was editing later on. I really felt the power of that music. So I hope that really moves into the audience and that they groove with it. And I hope also that for all of those who don't know this history in the Bronx, it really kind of begs the question, wait a minute, I had no idea that salsa grew out of this eclectic mix of people who came in from the islands, and oh, wow, and that it actually it deepens people's understandings of what the Bronx is and what the Bronx has offered the world.
Thank you for that. And definitely we talk about the fact that art and music are healing, and the moment that you capture, definitely as somebody who's a cultural producer and organizer, was brutal for musicians. It was brutal for filmmakers. Yep.
It was a painful time to film in the world with a mask on. The experience of going out into the world with a mask where nobody could see, or maybe they couldn't necessarily feel as much my own intentions being behind the camera, where engagements with colleagues were only by Zoom and not in person. It was a fraught time, but I needed this music during the pandemic. And for all of the months that I sat at my editing, table putting this together, those nights were really important for me, feeling that rhythm and being in that music. So I'm really thankful now that there's an opportunity for others to hear the music that actually meant so much to me personally as well.
Claro, and the hope is that these experiences have really provided us an opportunity to take a pause, to really reassess, to really not take for granted a lot of things, and to really be more present and value, each other and ourselves. So,
and our theaters and our performance spaces,
claro,
and our artists
and our music,
and
claro.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Feel more intentionally. Thank you, Taylor. Thank you so much for your work. Thank you for this collaboration with Arturo and with the musicians, with the community, and for lifting the story, and for being part of our cohort this year, and being now part of the PHLAFF family.
Thank you, Marángeli, and thank you to the whole Philadelphia Latino Film Festival PHLAFF family. I really appreciate being part of that. Muchísimas gracias.
Thank you so much.